Guys, we are coming out of the All-Star break, and it's officially time to lock back in. And I've got 10 names you need to consider adding to your team. A couple of young players like Cole Young and Ivan Herrera, and a couple of wily vets still getting it done like Jorge Polanco and Jeffrey Springs. Those names and more on today's action-packed episode of Locked On Fantasy Baseball.
You are Locked On Fantasy Baseball, your daily fantasy baseball podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, fantasy baseball fanatics, and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Baseball podcast, brought to you by the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, we're your number one source of fantasy baseball knowledge, and thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. I'm your host, Dominick Martino, riding solo today, as you can see if you're watching on YouTube. And if you are watching on YouTube and you haven't already, hit that little bell below. It's going to subscribe you to the channel and give you notification every time we drop a new episode. Or if you're listening on the audio side of things, once again, make sure you subscribe. And if you're on a platform like Apple or Spotify that allows 5-star ratings and reviews, we would truly appreciate it if you could do that for us as well. And lastly, what's most important to you guys and Matt and I, give us a chance on the Insider's Track. It's going to offer so more than we can in these 30-minute episodes, including when we do these episodes like our waiver wire ranking ones. We're going to rank these guys for you, tell you how you should prioritize them, when you're going to pick them up, and give you a few more stats that we can't offer in these 30-minute episodes. So check us out on the Insider's Track. The link's in the bio wherever you're listening, watching, and is available on any of our social media platforms. And today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. And all right, guys, All-Star game's done. Home Run Derby's done. Interesting, but my personal opinion, could have been a little bit better, but still cool to see, some fun stuff. Kyle Raleigh, Kyle Schwarber, lots of fun highlights, over the past few days. But listen, we're about to lock back in. Games are about to start back up. And, I know you need your fantasy baseball advice. So, Matt's got the night off. I'm here for you. Let's get into it. But first up, one of my boys, and listen, he's been banged up this year, but still having a strong season, Ivan Herrera, catcher for the St. Louis Cardinals. So on the season, it is 153 at-bats for him, 22 runs, 8 homers, 36 RBIs, 3 steals. He's batting .320 with a .923 OPS for those of you that applies to. 55% owned on Yahoo for Herrera. They just activated him off the IL. Literally one game before the All-Star break started. Of course, he went 1 for 3 with a walk and chipped in 2. Besides, he's going to show us he's very healthy with chipping in 2 steals. He has 16 extra base hits, on the year, which is looking great for him. Underlying stuff for Herrera actually looks pretty solid. And even for, the power stuff is better than we expected. The 8 home runs looks nice. He wasn't really expected to give us much power. And 8 home runs through 153 at-bats isn't horrible. He's still only 25. He's not a tall guy, but he's 5'11", 220. So he's got some muscle on him. Literally looking at his picture here on Baseball Savant, and the dude's got muscles for days. So I think the power is something that he's growing into. Like I said, the steals, I don't think that's going to be like a permanent part of his game. He's not a super fast guy. And as a catcher, I don't think they really want him stealing too many bases. Want to keep him healthy, especially guys who've been hurt multiple times already this season. But Ivan Herrera, man, if you need a catcher and he's out there, honestly, there's not many leagues he shouldn't be owned in. I think Ivan Herrera needs to be up to like 75% owned, especially when healthy, and if he can get it rocking and rolling like he had been. And they moved him into the 2-hole, in that one game he played after, right before the All-Star break, 1 for 3, once again with those 2 steals, hit second, Ivan Herrera did. So in those leagues where you need catchers, everything is pointing, every single arrow is pointing up for Ivan Herrera. He's only gotten better, even since last year as a 24-year-old. He's shown so much improvement. And once again, only 43 games played on the year, but you love everything that you see for him. And then once again, didn't even mention this, the 17 walks to 32 strikeouts is really nice. Love to see that from a guy like Ivan Herrera. So I'm adding him wherever I need a catcher and he's out there, honestly. There's not too many other waiver wire catchers that are, under 60% owned that I'm going to put over Ivan Herrera. So really love the kid having a breakout season. Just really hope he can stay healthy going into the second half. And if he can, he's going to be fantastic. Let's move on to this next guy, another young player here who, just wanted to get some consistent playing time. It's Colt Keith of the Detroit Tigers. Keith has great positional eligibility on Yahoo, first, second, and third. So he's got the whole, besides short, that whole infield covered there. He's been pretty solid of late, man. I want to go all the way back to what was it there? Even if you go back to, I'll go even further than I originally wanted to. June 19th, he was hitting second. June 20th, they moved him up to the leadoff spot. Homered in back-to-back days on those games. Had 5 RBIs and 3 runs. Went 4 for 6 on July 2nd over the cross a doubleheader with a run and an RBI. On July 7th and July 8th, homered on those 2 days. So Colt Keith's been on a nice little heater here recently, and he played consistently from July 6th to the 13th. And it looks like Detroit's going to really just try and let this kid get out there, not platoon him, just let him go out there and hit. 85 games played on the year for Keith. 43 runs, 8 homers, 30 RBIs. There's power upside here with Colt Keith. The runs are going to be great for him if he continues to, hit in this leadoff spot. And if he keeps hitting like this, I really think it's possible. Colt Keith was a very, very high-end prospect as little as a couple of years ago. 6'2", 211, 23 years old. The sprint speed is even nice for Colt Keith. He's in the 69th percentile, pretty fast. Knows how to find that sweet spot. The batting average loves what Colt Keith's doing. Says he could be even better. Expects him to be hitting around 280. And not everything looks super sexy for, the power, but Detroit's a tough park to hit those home runs in. But I think he's a guy that could eventually, and obviously not this year with 8 home runs and 85 games played, I think he's a guy who can get to a 25-ish, 28 home run, season pace there in Detroit, and we might even see it pick up here in the second half for the young Colt Keith. This kid's just really, really good. 32% owned on Yahoo. It's flying up. I want to say since the All-Star break, he's up 18% ownership since then. So we got to get on it. We got to get on with Colt Keith if we want a chance at, a slice of the pie here, because Colt Keith, like I said, high-end prospect, got power. I think the runs are going to be good. The batting average, I think, is pointing up. So in your standard 5x5 categories leagues, which is, you guys that are listeners, that's Matt and I specialize in, Colt Keith is giving you 3 out of the 5 major categories. 2.5. We'll say that the power is still out for question, but when I see back-to-back home runs on July 7th and July 8th, and then we said again on June 19th and June 20th, he's starting to find that power stroke a little bit. And he, like I said, he's a big boy, can hit that ball pretty far, pretty hard. Just Detroit, that park is tough to do it in. You know what, guys? We're rocking and rolling. Let's sneak one more name in here before we take a little break. Let's talk about Jorge Polanco of those Seattle Mariners. And with Polanco, it's just kind of, is he healthy? If he's healthy, he's probably doing somewhat decent, and I want him on my team. And coming out of the All-Star break, it's no better time for a veteran like Polanco. And he's been another guy, been on a nice little heater of late. We go back to July 3rd, where he went 3 for 4 with a home run. On July 9th, another 1 for 3 game with a home run. Back-to-back home runs make that, because on July 10th, he homered and had 3 RBIs in that one, with 2 for 4 on the 11th. Pinch hit on July 13th with the home run. So, arrows pointing back up for Polanco, and he gets a nice little time to catch his breath here at the All-Star break. And on the year, Mr. Polanco has 78 games played, 256 batting average, 33 runs, 15 homers, 44 RBIs, and 3 steals. You like the home run and RBI pace for him. He's been hitting 5th in that Seattle lineup, and they move him around. Sometimes he hits 4th as well, so he's in a good spot for RBIs. And listen, if Julio can keep getting on base in front of him, and those boys over there in Seattle can do a little bit better here in the second half, I think Polanco's worth the add. He's only 26% owned on Yahoo, 2nd and 3rd eligibility, and like I said, he's a veteran, and we kind of know what to expect from him. He can. He's not going to hurt you in batting average, but I don't think he's going to be like, a super contributor. The power is pretty legit. The RBIs, like I said, in that spot, in that lineup, is pretty good. And then even the underlying stuff, and like I said, the power doesn't look bad. The batting average loves him and says Polanco should be hitting about 290. So, like I said, he's not going to kill you in batting average, and there's a chance he could even help you. Power pace is solid. Could give you end the year with 25-ish to 28 home runs. I'd lean more towards the first one there with 25. RBI pace is nice, could give you 90, if he keeps continuing like this. So if you need someone second and third, that's going to give you a little bit of pop, batting average, and RBIs. Polanco is going to be one of those guys. But guys, before we move on and we talk a little bit about Cole Young, man, who's starting to heat up for those same Seattle Mariners, and then we have guys like Jeffrey Springs and Brayan Bello on the pitcher's end, but those names and more coming up next. And all right, guys, there's nothing better than catching an MLB game live. The crack of the bat, the roar of the crowd, and the smell of the ballpark food. And if you're looking to go last minute, Game Time makes getting the tickets easier than ever with last minute ticket deals, all-in pricing, and a lowest price guarantee. Game Time takes the stress out of buying MLB tickets. Plus, ticket prices drop as the game time gets closer, meaning you score an incredible deal. Guys, with their spontaneous, like if you're going for a spontaneous game night, I recently grabbed some last minute tickets, before the All-Star break, me and the, wife, we always go into those Yankee games, and Game Time had unbeatable prices, which meant more money for food and merch. And come on, guys, I love me some merch. If you guys new around here, you haven't seen all the jersey collection, I got to start breaking them out. I moved about a year ago and got to get them organized, so I'll start breaking them out again. You'll see the merch, trust me. And Game Time helped with that. And then Game Time's pick feature, this makes finding the best deals effortless. It filters out the fluff and highlights the top discounts in the stadium. And another one of their great features is you can view the seat you're going to be sitting in before you buy. I personally love that so much. It's going to be the exact seat, so before purchasing, there's no bad surprises when you get to the stadium. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code Locked On MLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem the code LOCKEDON MLB for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices always guaranteed. And all right, guys, one more thing here before we get back into it. I just want to talk to you guys about the Insider's Track one more time. It just offers so much more than we can possibly do here in these 30-minute episodes, right? We're going to give you, when we do these waiver wire episodes, we're going to rank these guys for you, tell you how I should be prioritizing them when you're picking them up, give you a few more stats than we can in the episode. When the top prospects in the game are getting called up, you're going to get an instant text message notification. Nobody else in the industry is offering you that. So when, the next group of top prospects get called up, which we talked about them in our last episode, so check that one out if you haven't, you're going to know before anybody else in your league and be able to pick them up, and it's going to get you the fantasy glory. And if you just have any general questions, especially with the trade deadline right around the corner, you can ask Matt and I anything you need. Once again, you do that on the Insider Track. You're going to find the link for that in the bio if you're listening, watching, and it's available on any of our social media platforms. Let's keep things pushing. I mentioned him before the break. Cole Young, if you're not familiar, was a very high-end prospect with those Seattle Mariners. Recently just got called back up. Guys, please forgive my pup in the background. My wife is with him, and he's having a little bit of a tough night, so please forgive me on that one. So Cole Young, right? Second and short eligible on Yahoo, hitting 254 on the season, 35 games played, 13 runs, 2 homers, 11 RBIs, and he's heating up. He's been hitting ninth, playing a little bit more consistently, giving him a couple of days off here and there. But since July 8th, heating up 1 for 3 on that day. The next day on July 9th, went 1 for 4 with a home run, 2 RBIs. July 10th, went 2 for 4 with an RBI that day. July 12th, 1 for 3 with 2 runs. July 13th, in the last game for the All-Star break for Cole Young, went 2 for 4 with a home run. And Cole Young is only 2% owned. He was a very high-end prospect, as I previously had said. It's got a little bit of pop, got a little bit of speed. It's a nice combo there, hitting ninth in that Seattle lineup when it turns over. We were just talking about Polanco. We talked about Julio. They got a couple of guys over there that can get it done. And for a 21-year-old, this first taste of the bigs, to be hitting almost 260 through his first 35 games, impressive to me. In the minors this year in AAA, before Young got the call, he had played 54 games down there, 206 at-bats, 39 runs, 13 doubles, 5 triples, 5 homers, 26 RBIs, 4 steals, had 31 walks to 28 strikeouts, was hitting 277. Cole Young has been impressive, man, down in the minors. Like I said, showing off that impressive power-speed combo. A little bit more on the speed side than on the power. Had a couple of 20 steal seasons down in the minors, Cole Young did. So, I think those steals are coming. The power is already starting to show off a little bit there for him. 13 runs and 11 RBIs, not too shabby. 35 games on that Seattle team that hasn't been super impressive this year. For fantasy purposes, really haven't been giving us too much from the hitting end. So Cole Young's a nice, young, interesting player, very widely available. The middle infield eligibility at 2% owned, as I had mentioned on Yahoo. Cole Young is definitely somebody. I'm out there in those deep leagues, those 15s, those AL only situations like that. Just going out there and snagging him if I want somebody that isn't widely owned yet, and that I could take a chance on, that has some prospect pedigree and can give you some interesting stats. Because if the batting average can hold up, if he can really get it going with the speed here. And actually, I want to see what he's registering on sprint speed, for you guys here, because I know he's got somewhat speed to him. So let's see. Actually, 60th percentile sprint speed, not super sexy. 35 games, super small sample side though. I'll be honest with you, the underlying stuff isn't really loving everything Cole Young's doing. But once again, a young player who's holding his own so far, has some upside. Only doing it in deeper formats, like I said, in your deep 12s even. I just throw Cole Young on the waiver, on the watch list, and see if he can keep it up. But otherwise, keep it to those 15-mans and shallower. Let's move on to our last bat. Let's talk about Andrew Vaughn. Another deeper league, kind of play, 6% owned on Yahoo. First base eligible. He's over there in Milwaukee now, right? Nice little change of scenery from those White Sox, right? 53 games played on the year. 206 batting average, 12 runs, 7 homers, 29 RBIs. Like I said, change of scenery. He's over in Milwaukee now. Since July 7th, on a little hit streak. I know was that a 5-game hit streak. July 7th, 2 runs, a home run, 3 RBIs, and that's a 1-for-2 game for Andrew Vaughn that day. He went 1-for-3 the next day with an RBI, 1-for-1 on the 9th with an RBI, hit a home run again on the 11th, 2-for-4 on July 12th with 4 RBIs. And like I said, kind of same thing as Cole Young. Deeper league play here with Vaughn. Could be good for power. Even 7 home runs, 53 games isn't great. But, 2 home runs in his last 5, I think he's going to be a little bit more motivated to play. And, like I said, red hot start with the Brewers over here. He's driven in 10 runs since he's gotten there. You'll love to see that. And I don't think he's going to play every single day. So, like I said, not going to be in those leagues where, you kind of set it and forget it leagues. Your daily lineup change league is more applicable, where you can move those guys in and out on a daily basis. And in those shallower leagues, you're not going to do it because you want guys playing every day in those kind of formats because they're widely available. So Andrew Vaughn, another guy who I really thought was going to pan out to have a better career than he has. So I do really hope he can keep it going here with the new change of scenery, getting out of Chicago, the White Sox end, where it's been abysmal for the last 2 years minimum. So, Andrew Vaughn, once again, hitting .429 since he's got to Milwaukee with the 2 home runs, 2 doubles, 6 hits overall, 10 RBIs. Add him now while he's hot, at least, because they're going to keep him in the lineup. But, guys, let's get into the pitchers half of this in a second with Jeffrey Springs, Bello, and Ronny Henriquez. And all right, as I mentioned, I'm excited to get into the pitching half of this episode, and we're going to start with one of my boys, Jeffrey Springs. Listen, I knew Springs wasn't going to come back and be the guy he was pre-injury, right? He was on a trajectory. Honestly, I think if Jeffrey Springs didn't get hurt and miss, a year of baseball, he would have been arguably top 20 starting pitcher because he just was on that track. He had figured everything out, man. He didn't have to do much more to be that guy, and he was really headed that way. But he's been solid this year through 18 starts. Springs has 8 wins, a 3.93 ERA, a 1.18 WHIP, 110 innings pitched, and 86 strikeouts. And he's really been rocking and rolling, honestly, since the beginning of June. He's been suppressing runs. The strikeouts haven't been great, but he's been around a K per 9. It looks like he's going to get the Guardians out of the All-Star break. Once again, I'm not sure how teams are going to line up their rotations coming out, but it does look like he will get the Guardians, and it's not a bad matchup. Really get past Jose Ramirez and Stephen Kwan, I guess. Not too much else going on over there, and I think it's going to be manageable for Springs. He's 36% owned on Yahoo. And let's even just do the last 30 days. We could do that. The last 30 days, Springs has 30 innings pitched, 3 wins, 20 strikeouts, a 2.37 ERA, a 0.89 WHIP, and 3 quality starts. So if that kind of doesn't scream must add to you, I don't know what does at the moment. Because Springs is locked and loaded. And I don't think, like I said, I don't think he's ever going to find that form where he looks like ace-ish. But he can be a solid SP 5-6, honestly, at this point in your, I want to say like a deep 12-man league, and even if you want to go shallower, 6-7. I like Jeffrey Springs, and definitely think you need to add him while you still can. And I didn't even mention this, but let's do it real quick. He's been giving you a lot of length, even back to the beginning of June. He's had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 starts. Only 2 of those starts has he gone less than 6 innings. So the time is now. I think 36% owned for Springs is a little bit on the low side. Let's move on to this next pitcher, though, because I want to try and sneak all these names in for you here. Brayan Bello of the Boston Red Sox. Been on this podcast a little bit of late because, I want to say all the way back to right after that start against the Yankees, because I remember watching that one. That was back on June 15th, where he went 7 against my Yanks. No earned runs, 0.86 WHIP, struck out 8 in 7 innings. Once again, got the win, quality start. He's been really, really good, man. 15 starts this year for Bello, 6 wins, 3.14 ERA, a 1.28 WHIP, 91 innings pitched, 70 strikeouts, and the strikeouts have been up. I mentioned this, the 8 strikeout game against the Yanks on the 15th. The one after that, he got 6 strikeouts in 6 innings against the Giants. On July 8th against Colorado, 9 innings, 10 strikeouts. He looks like he's starting to figure it out, man. And if this Bello kid gets it going, former high-end prospect, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for batters going up against him. I'll give you the last 30 days for Bello as well. 32 innings pitched, 3 wins, 25 strikeouts, 2.51 ERA, and 0.93 WHIP, and 4 quality starts. So this kid's are high-end must add, 52% for Bello, higher than Springs, but I'm prioritizing Bello over Springs. And who does it look like he is going to get coming out of the All-Star break? Might be the Cubs, but once again, not sure how it's going to line up and shake for Bello coming out of the All-Star break. You don't know what these teams are necessarily going to do with their rotations. But let's see who they get after that. It's probably the Cubs or the Phillies, which either is a tough matchup. But you know what, man? The way that Bello has been rocking and rolling, he goes out there and dominates one of those teams, man. That 52% owned? Yeah, that 52% ownership goes up to 80 or 75 real quick, because Bello, since the All-Star break, is up 27% ownership on Yahoo. So honestly, a big must-add here for Brayan Bello if he didn't already do it, like I told you a month and a half ago at this point. Let's keep things pushing. Let's go into the next pitcher, and let's do a closer. Let's do the closer. We mentioned him, so might as well just get him out the way. Ronny Henriquez of the Miami Marlins. He's out there closing now, man, and he's been really good this season. I'm just getting giddy talking about it. 45 innings for Henriquez. He's got 5 wins, 5 saves, 63 strikeouts, 2.60 ERA, and a 1.13 WHIP. Like I said, he's just been stellar, especially since he's gotten the job. He's taken it and run away with it. Not going to be a huge amount of save opportunities there in Miami, but, anytime you can get a closer that is putting up numbers like this, well over that K per 9, good ratios, you'll take it because if that's what you're getting anyway, right? Even if he's not giving you a save, as often as you would like, you'll take the big strikeout numbers every time he goes out there. You'll take the run suppression. You'll take the pretty good command. And I'll be honest with you, Henriquez, somebody I wasn't really too familiar with until this season when we started to see him in the back of that pen, and you're just like, all right, who's this dude? That's going out there and striking everybody out. But he's young, 25 years old. Fastball sits around 96.5. Gets a lot of chases, whiffs. That's why he's striking everybody out the way he does, and just been getting good results. So Henriquez at 40% owned on Yahoo. It's up 12% over the last couple of days since the All-Star break. Must add closer if you need one, because this is the time of year. Well, I will say this: there's one last big time to get closers, and that's the trade deadline when teams move guys around, some guys step up. You don't really see too many more injuries this time of year with the closers. Everyone's kind of, stretched out and good. And you don't really see, too many guys blowing up at this time either. So Ronny Henriquez might be one of the last guys we see before the trade deadline that you can go out there and snag. So, personally, I'm going to go out there and do it while we still can. But I want to move on to our next guy. Let's talk about Slade Cecconi from those Cleveland Guardians. And he's another guy. It's just been pretty hot of late. Not somebody I'm a huge fan of or think can keep it going forever, but he's been solid this year. So Cecconi has 55 innings pitched, 56 strikeouts, 4 wins, a 3.44 ERA, a 1.27 WHIP, and 4 quality starts on the season. But like I said, he's been getting better of late. His last start especially was super impressive. Slade the Blade went out there, 7 innings, 9 strikeouts, gave up 1 earned run, I believe. Yeah, 2 earned runs. Sorry about that. 2 earned runs and a 1 WHIP, which was impressive. Before that, went out and gave up 3 earned and 6 against the Tigers, 5 strikeouts, a 1.33 WHIP. So he's been pretty impressive of late, handled, those Tigers who have been really good, and Houston, another good team. And it looks like he's going to get the Athletics coming out of the break. Listen, those boys, and, I was going to say Oakland, but those boys on the Athletics can go out there and hit. So I don't think it's a super sexy matchup for Slade. But, Slade Cecconi can go out there and do all right. I think he can give you, a couple strikeouts, maybe 3 earned runs, 6 innings, and it's not going to be too bad. But I like the way that this kid's been throwing, made some improvements this year, and it's starting to pay off for him. So I'd say at 14% owned, your deeper leagues, your AL only, stuff like that. You can go out there, give Slade Cecconi a shot. Once again, he pitches for those Cleveland Guardians. But I do want to get this last name in, of the episode, so we're going to move on. Let's talk about Brandon Walter of those Houston Astros. Another young pitcher who has been somewhat impressive this year. I kind of wanted to get you guys a couple of different names to kind of switch it up a little bit. I know I gave you some guys who've been on the podcast, but I want to talk about a few guys who haven't. And Brandon Walter has been pretty solid, actually the whole season. 7 starts, a win, 3.98 ERA, a 40 innings, 40 strikeouts, and his last time out, 6 innings, 7 strikeouts, gave up a couple earned, and that was against Cleveland. 0.33 WHIP in that one. Got hit around at Coors, but Coors is tough to pitch in, especially if you haven't done it before. Before that, though, went out there against the Cubs, 6 innings, got the win, 5 strikeouts, 1 earned run, 0.83 WHIP. The control has been pretty strong for Walter on the season. He's 15% owned on Yahoo, and I think he's going to get Seattle coming out of the break in Seattle, too, so that's a good part to pitch in for the young Brandon Walter, and that's really about it. He's deeper formats. I'm not going everywhere on him, because you don't really know how the future is going to pan out. So in your deep 12s, I might add Walter there just to see what he's got. Anything shallower than that, Walter, we're just going to add him to the watch list. But guys, that is going to be all for today. Please be sure to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review, and shout out to our everydayers and new listeners making Locked On Fantasy Baseball your first listen each and every day. And after you make us your first listen, go out and check out our boy Sully over at Locked On MLB and make him your second listen each and every day. And guys, until next time, see ya.